Oh, what a day it is right here in Ocala, Florida. And I want to thank those of you who have discovered me and my program, Jonathan Morris Schwartz, My Manic Brain, Sex, Politics, and Everlasting Life. This is my YouTube channel. I have a daily newsletter on Substack, which some of you are subscribing to. And today we are going to focus on the newsletter for March 2nd, 2021, entitled Eternal Optimists Are Losers in Love. Delusion is the Secret to Happiness. My blog, my daily newsletter, the YouTube channel, and the podcast focus on culture and society through the eyes of this middle-aged man who, like anyone else, has ups and downs and struggles. But my focus today is why am I so happy? Really, from the time of the home movies, when I was 3, 4, 5 years old, there was no video cameras. Most people who had the ability to buy a projector and a camera, a 16 or 8 millimeter camera, would film the family, no sound, play it back on a projector, just like in elementary school when you'd watch a film. And from the time I was 2, 3, 4 years old, you could see I was sunny. I was walking and talking with a smile. I was babbling on about anything with anyone who would listen. I was chirpy. And this was at an age where a lot of children have a disposition that they're born with, an innate brain chemistry, if you will. And through elementary school, middle school, high school, college, graduate school, work life, 2 marriages, serious girlfriends, some relationships, dabbling in the online dating app hysteria, what I call the carousel of madness, I've retained a strange, eternal optimism, a sunniness, a happiness that doesn't necessarily make sense. We're going to analyze it a little bit, but if you want to go into some of the more thought-out details of my manic brain, you can go to www.substack.com and check out today's newsletter. But so why am I so happy? Well, it doesn't make a lot of sense. I'm woefully undersexed. I'm in a good profession. I have a master's degree in speech language pathology. I have enjoyed working with children and adults, mostly geriatrics. I did a brief stint in the Bronx and Co-op City, and 2 years worked with children with autism. I was a member of the New York City Board of Education public school system. I joined the union. Had I stayed there, I wouldn't have been able to afford much for the 20 or 25 years it took to reach retirement. But at this stage, at almost 55, I would have been retired, and probably retired 5 years ago, but certainly by 55, and would have a strong pension and would be living in Florida by the pool with a daiquiri, and would probably be super duper happy, comparatively speaking. But and so, yes, I'm making a living. I'm comfortable. I'm happy, but I don't have the kind of savings or wealth or accumulation of worth where I can retire until I'm in my mid to late 60s, and they've pushed the full retirement age now. So really, to get maximum benefits, I need to work till I'm 70 and another 15 glorious years. I'm generally in good health, but I have high blood pressure, which is stubborn. and may not be compatible with extremely long life. It may. I feel great, but you know what they say, it's the silent killer, and who knows? Haven't looked inside myself lately, but so there's several reasons why I should be content, but every day, with the exception of days that I'm sick or have a reason to be depressed, but nearly every day, I have what Greenspan called years ago about a stock market that was out of control. I have somewhat of an irrational exuberance about myself and an excitement over mundane daily stuff that other people don't seem to enjoy as much. A heightened sense of smell and touch and sight. So why? Why do I tend to feel excited? Well, let's discuss a couple of possibilities. One, and this is something that you can look up and Google, but there's been a few studies done asking men and women how often they think about sex. Some studies have actually asked how often they have sex in comparison to the amount of times they think about it. But generally what I was reading is it's about 7 or 8 or 9 times a day. Men think about it a little more than women, but it's about 8 times a day is what I've been reading. Some more, some less. And very few people are, every single time they think about it, having it. Maybe, but so in some ways, reason number one that I might be ecstatic about living is the thought, the fantasy, sometimes is enough. The anticipation is ongoing, particularly when most of your experience with romance and sex is cerebral. Fantasy always exceeds reality, indeed. There was a great, this is back to, probably 79-ish, when Merv Griffin and Mike Douglas were on TV. And I believe it was Orson Welles, it might have been Truman Capote, told a story about how he had a fantasy of an affair where the lover in his mind would show up and they would get into striped pajamas, striped red and pink pajamas, and they would get in the shower and feel the warm water and the intensity of the sensation, and described this in his mind, what was an enormously exciting fantasy, and said someday when he had the opportunity to live that fantasy, the reality was the water didn't get hot enough. The pajamas, because the ink was too strong, started leaking and dripping down the side of their faces. They weren't able to really enjoy any real romance. It was the fantasy, and the fantasy alone that kept it alive. Reality not only didn't live up, reality sucked compared to what he had dreamed of. The other possibility is that life is just inherently good. That we all tap into the goodness despite all the evil, despite the sadness, despite the trauma, despite the unfairness, despite the cruelty, the inequality. As Maya Angelou said, the caged bird sings because it must or die, or it must and die. And it may be that we, like a beautiful bird that sings, have an innate desire, have a bursting out of joy that occasionally finds its way and expresses itself. Another possibility that I tend to smell the roses deeply, Maybe I'm delusional. I mean, when I created my manic brain, Sex, Politics, and Everlasting Life, the reason that I didn't just call it my manic brain was I wanted to be clear that I'm not speaking necessarily of manic in the bipolar sense, or in the one extreme or the other, from lows to highs. I'm manic in its purest defined form is excited. And I always include the Sex, Politics, and Everlasting Life because that's how my excitement, my manic brain, tends to express itself. Almost everything that I think about, that I write about, that entices me and excites me and motivates me falls within those categories of sex, politics, or everlasting life, the meaning of life. Hope springs eternal. There are many, many political slogans and books and songs about hope. Keep hope alive, Jesse Jackson, Obama, hope and change. There is such a thing as hope, even in despair. This is a big one. Having been married twice and having had a wonderful relationship and having had a couple mini relationships, and again, briefly I'll describe. For a time over the past 8 years, off and on, I signed up on almost all of the online dating apps, from Match.com to Plenty of Fish to OkCupid. Mostly it was the free ones, but I paid a few times, and a handful of others. There was Zoosk, Tinder and Bumble, of course, which were I was least successful at Tinder and Bumble. No surprise there. But more successful on the websites where you got to know the person a little bit. You had a chance to express yourself on your profile a little more deeply than just looking at a picture and getting in line. And over years, off and on, I had about 80 dates. Now, a lot of the time, it was really because I wanted to do something. I wanted to stay busy. I would tell the woman, let's go out. No strings, no pressure, and we would have dinner. And out of the 80 times, only 3 or 4 times, 5 at the most, was there the kind of mutual spark that led to anything more than just companionship and enjoying the dinner and each other's company. But I learned and I discussed and I enjoyed the sociological aspect of having a date. Of oftentimes we would discuss, it was a real sort of meta-cognitive loop in that we would discuss the dating apps themselves. And people could write books on this. We know that you're on, now that we're all addicted to our phones, that even on these dates, we're on the date, we're on the phone, we're getting notifications while on the date, and we look because it could be, that someone on that carousel of madness I described that you really are hoping for, that might be better than this date, trying to be mutually exclusive, trying to develop some kind of long-term relationship is tricky, and that's part of the problem with it. But after experimenting with it a while, and again, I was 45, 48, 46. I was probably 45 when I started messing around with it. Then I had a relationship for a while. Then I went back to it, and time flies. I'm now going to be turning 55, and I've gotten out of it what I feel I can, and I don't have a real desire to continue with it. So for the past couple of years, I've been truly single. Not just single because I'm not married, but single and not looking really, or single and not necessarily willing or able to commit to something that would be considered a relationship. And that was part of why I stopped, because when you join these online dating sites, you have to tell what you're looking for, and they usually have some variation of casual, you just want to hook up, And then there's one that would say dating but not serious. Sometimes they would have dating but serious, looking for a long-term relationship, looking for marriage, looking for kids, not kids. You had to spell all that out. And it got to a point where, for a while, I think when I first started, I put casual, but many of the women who may even be looking for casual don't put that down, because then they appear to be looking for casual. And so you're kind of stuck categorizing yourself in an area that may not be what you're actually looking for in order to get some responses and some dates. So that's one reason. But being truly single has given me a freedom and an opportunity to be myself, to explore this sort of manic, strange, ecstatic, without understanding bursting of joy I get when others don't, or in situations where others aren't expressing it. Again, a lot has to do with how we read people, and it may be that many people do have the same kind of exuberance. It just doesn't show in their gestures. But so being single makes a difference in the sense that I couldn't have written the book, My Manic Brain, Sex, Politics, and Everlasting Life. I couldn't have started the podcast. I certainly couldn't have been writing the Substack blog newsletter if I were in a marriage or relationship where I was measuring my thoughts and my words, and before I publish anything had to think, am I upsetting this person? Am I going to be exposing that? I'm careful when I discuss my personal life not to use formal names and use pronouns and change situations and such. But in terms of being able to be myself, behave the way I wish to behave, to express myself in writing, on YouTube here, on the podcast, in a transparent way, matters. It's very comforting. It's freeing. I mean, it's freedom. It's true freedom. And I love it. So, what are some concrete reasons, perhaps scientific reasons, that I tend to run sunny? Well, one is what we discussed, which is that daydreaming, fantasizing, having an active imagination, being able to see in your mind's eye and enjoy a fantasy in a meaningful internal way is comforting. It's like someone who can play a musical instrument, or enjoys painting, or sewing, or fishing, or whatever it is that puts them in that enjoyable state. For me, an active imagination is part of it. Number two, being a middle-aged, average-looking man of limited resources and wealth means if someone likes me, it's for me. It's not for my Lamborghini or a Rolex or my big house. It's me for me. Number three, anticipation can be eternal. There's something about the hope, there's something about the fact that at any age there's potential, at any ability there's compatibility, there's always someone for everyone, and that, like Shel Silverstein's The Giving Tree, even after the tree gave its branches, its apples, its leaves, its trunk, and was nothing but a stump, it still was a resting place for an old man. It still had value, and so do we. Fourth, perhaps I have overactive senses in the sense that maybe I smell things deeply, maybe I feel things deeply or see things deeply. And this just, again, it's innate, it's real, but I try to both create my own happiness or create situations that lead to enjoying the moment, but I genuinely have found joy in what others might call routine or mundane. A cheeseburger and hash browns at Waffle House. That's tingling. That's mind-boggling. That's exciting for me. A conversation with someone, being able to listen to someone else's situation, reminiscing with my geriatric patients about their day, about their bingo and whether the bacon was crisp enough or how their eggs were made, and getting into their world and getting excited about what they're excited about, validating them, brings me joy. A good film, a YouTube video, a book, beet juice. Talk about blood pressure. To me, a glass of beet juice is my red wine, or borscht. Though some of you will know, I haven't had. When I was a kid, we had it for some reason. It's like Russian Polish. Borscht is little pieces of beets in beet juice. Usually, you eat it like a cold soup, and you put a dollop of sour cream, and to me it's delicious. To most people, it looks like you're like a bloody, creamy mess, but I enjoy it. So, thank you very much for joining me for this discussion about what is happiness. I also wonder, to button up, whether, and believe me, I've had in some ways a privileged upbringing, but I far from achieved what when I was 16 perhaps I hoped to achieve in terms of money, in terms of romance or sex or long-term relationship, even to some extent health. But I have never and will never give up on the potential. It may be that people who are given everything, or who either inherit or are, in some cases, are fortunate enough to be attractive enough or rich enough to not really have to use their imagination. They get what they want. They see a pretty girl or vice versa, and it happens. So they want something and they buy it. They get into the rat race, if you will, into the comparison, keeping up with the Joneses. And perhaps that's part of what keeps some from smelling the roses, from enjoying that cheeseburger or a stack of waffles with syrup. But who knows? Regardless, thank you. Look forward to seeing you again. Please enjoy Substack. And oh, what a day it is. Bye-bye, everybody.